Hello everyone, I'm Professor Saibdeva Patil, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, GND CT Jaipur. So I welcome you all for this cloud computing lecture. So in today's lecture, we are going to see the content: cloud storage diversity vendor locking, then cloud interoperability, that is in detail about intercloud, then energy use and ecological impact on large data centers of the cloud computing. So these three topics that we are going to cover in the today's session. So first we have the cloud storage diversity and the vendor locking. So vendor locking concept we have already gone through in the previous lecture. So what do you mean by vendor lock? So here there are like several risks. The risk factors will be there. There are several risks involved when a large organization relies solely on a single cloud provider. If there is a only single cloud provider, then for everything, the large organization that relies that depends on the that particular single cloud service provider. So here, cloud services may be unavailable for a short or an extended period of time. So this may be one of the drawbacks. Then permanent data loss that is because of the like failures, system failures. The failures we call it as a catastrophic system failures. So because of the catastrophic system failures, you may lose the data permanently. The next we have the provider may increase the prices for services. So vendor lock-in means we are going to hook to the one particular service provider. So if the service provider he increases the price for the services, then you cannot able to do. You have to pay the service. I mean, we need to pay the price, whatever like service provider he demands. So this is called as a like vendor locking. In that case, if a user cannot able to move to our another service provider once we hook into the particular service provider. So here you can also have the switching to another provider could be very costly. So when vendor locking that is going to take place, the service provider, sorry, not service provider, the customer would like to switch one service provider to another service provider. But the thing is that it is very costly due to the large volume of data to be transferred from old to the new provider. So because it will take much time as well, it will like we need to pay more for transferring the data from old to the new provider because we are making use of the network bandwidth. Then we have a solution is to, so this is a problem we have discussed. The solution for that is replicate the data. So how the replication works? To replicate the data to multiple cloud service providers similar to the data replication in RAID. So we are going to see in detail about the RAID concept. So the solution for this vendor lock-in is replicating the data. So how we are going to replicate means what? That duplicate data. So replicate the data on a multiple cloud service provider. So this is one of the like solution we can say, but this solution is not a efficient one. We'll see in detail about that. Here, as I told you, like transferring the terabytes of or possibly petabytes of data over the network takes a fairly long time and incurs substantial charges for the network bandwidth. So for transferring the data, as I told you, so we need to pay for the like it will take of course long time and we need to incur substantial charges for the network bandwidth. So this is all about the cloud storage diversity and vendor locking. So we have the like RAID system that is replicating the data. So here we have two diagrams. Uh, RAID 5 controller A. So this is like figure A and this is figure B. So here in a 3 comma 4, 3 comma 4 is nothing but a disk. Okay, this 3 comma 4. RAID 5 configuration in which Individual blocks are stripped over three disks and a parity block. So we have the like total four disks, disk one, disk two, disk three, and disk four. So here the parity block is constructed by XORing the data block. So XOR operation, you might have known how actually XOR operation that works. So here the it it works based on the by constructing by the XORing the data block. For example, if you consider AP, okay, so here we have the AP. So how we can do XOR operation? A1 XOR A2, A1, okay, XOR A2, XOR A3, okay. AP can be written something like this. So this is AP, sorry, AP, that is A1. So we have the XOR operation, that is A2. Then we have the XOR operation A3. So similarly, okay, we can write it for the D1. Okay, so how we can write it for the D1? Where we can find the D1 here? D1 somewhere here. Okay, how we can write the D1? D1 is equal to, that is DP XOR D2 XOR D3, like that. If you want to write it for CP, that is C1 XOR C2 XOR C3. So that is how we are going to XOR the operation. So here we have the parity blocks are distributed among the four blocks. That is, AP is on the disk 4. So here we have the disk 4. This is a parity block. Okay. For disk 3, DP. This is a parity block. For disk 2, CP. This is a parity block. For disk 1, DP. This is a parity block. So here, this is how it looks like a RAID 5 controller. Again, we have in the diagram 2 a system that strips data across four clouds. Here we have the four clouds: cloud 1, cloud 2, cloud 3, and cloud 4. Okay, the proxy which provides a transparent access to the data. So this proxy which performs transparent access to the particular data. This is all about how RAID 5 controller that works. Next, we'll have cloud interoperability, that is intercloud. So how actually that is intercloud works? Cloud interoperability, cloud interoperability, that means it could alleviate the concern that users could become hopelessly dependent on a single cloud service provider. When it depends upon the single service provider, so what will happen? The problem that we have discussed in the previous slide. So here we have the intercloud. So intercloud means it's a federation of the cloud that cooperate to provide a better user experience. So it provides the better user experience. So we call it as an internetwork. Internetwork means what? There is a like multiple networks will be there, more than one network. So that is what we call it as an internetwork. Is an intercloud feasible? This is a question we are supposed to ask. Then, not likely at this time. Here, there are no standards for either storage or processing. So we are talking about the intercloud. Okay. So there are no standards for either storage or processing. Next, the clouds are based on different delivery models. So delivery models that we have gone through, that is software as a service, then platform as a service, then what? Infrastructure as a service. So these three are the what? Delivery models. The set of services supported by these delivery models is large and open. So new services are offered every few months. So CSPs, that is cloud service providers, believe that they have a competitive advantages due to the uniqueness of added value of their services. So next we have security is a major concern for cloud user, not only intercloud but the cloud as well. And an intercloud could only create a new threats. So this is all with respect to the cloud interoperability, that is intercloud. So intercloud would open would then require the development of ontology. There is a one more term, that is a ontology. So what do you mean by ontology? Ontology means it provides the means of knowledge representation within a domain. It consists of a set of domains concept and the relationship among the concepts. So this is what we call it as a ontology. So here, as I told you, an intercloud would then require the development of an ontology for cloud computing. Then each cloud service provider would have to create a description of all resources and services using this ontology. Next, we have the intercloud routes play the role of certificate authority. This intercloud, so it plays a role of certificate authority. It means where the intercloud exchange determine the trust indexes between the clouds. So this is how the intercloud that works. Next, we have the energy use and ecological impact. The energy consumption of large scale data centers means the data where we are going to store, and their cost for energy and for cooling and significant. So here, it is widely reported that during the last 2 decades, the performance of computing system has increased much faster than their operating efficiency. You will see in detail about operating efficiency by looking at the example. So you can see one particular example here. In 2006, the 6,000 data centers in the USA consumed 61 into 10 to the power of 9 kilowatt hours of energy. 1.5% of all electricity consumption at cost of, that is $4.5 billion. So in this particular slide, we are going to look at the energy usage and how ecologically it impacts on the cloud computing. So next we have the energy consumed by data centers was expected to double from 2006 to 2011, and peak instantaneous demand to increase that is from 7 gigawatt to 12 gigawatt. So this is the data we have. So next we have the greenhouse effect. So the greenhouse gas emission due to the data centers is estimated to increase from 116 into 10 to the power of 9 tons of CO2 in 2007 to 257 tons in 2020. So what was the number? That is 116 into 10 to the 9 tons of CO2 in 2007 to 257 tons in 2002 due to increased consumer demand. So due to increased consumer demand, the increases in the CO2, that is carbon dioxide. The effort to reduce energy use is focused on computing. So mainly the effort are to reduce the energy that mainly focused on the computing. That is computing, networking, and storage activities of the data centers. So this is all about the energy use and ecological impact. Next, we'll see more about the energy usage, that is operating efficiency of a system is captured by the performance per watt power. So that is we call the PPW, performance per watt of power. So here we have the performance of supercomputers has increased 3.5 times. It increased 3.5 times faster than their operating efficiency. Listen once again, the performance of supercomputers has increased 3.5 times faster than their operating efficiency, that is 7,000 versus 7,000% versus 2,000% that during the period of 1998 to 2007. So the performance of the supercomputer had been increased how many times? 3.5 times. A typical Google cluster spends most of its time within the 10 to 50% of CPU utilization range, There is a mismatch between server workload profile and server energy efficiency. So next we'll see energy professional systems. So what do you mean by energy professional system? Here, an energy professional system consumes no power when idle. So when it is idle, it will not consume any energy. So it consumes very little power under the light load. If there is some light load, then it consumes little power. Gradually, more power as load increases. As load increases, like it will increase the what? Energy. Okay. So by definition, an ideal energy profession system is always operating at 100% efficiency. So humans are good approximation of an ideal energy propulsion system, about 70 watt at rest, 120 watt on average on a daily basis. So this is an example they have taken, and can go as high as 1000 to 2000 watt during the strenuous, that is short time effort. So this is the energy professional system. So here we have we have a diagram that is which clearly says about the percentage of power usage and percentage of the system utilization. So with respect to y-axis, we have the percentage of power, how much power we are utilizing, using, and percentage of the system utilization with respect to x-axis. We have two lines here, power and energy efficiency. So this is a typical operating region. Just look at, even when the power requirements scale linearly with the load. Okay, this is a power, this is in linear mode. Okay, so linearly with the load, the energy efficiency of a computing system is not linear. So this is the energy efficient that is represented. So here we have power is linear, okay, but energy efficiency, that is not linear function of the load. Even when idle, a system may use 50% of the power. Okay, when it is in idle, then also it uses how much? 50% of the power corresponding to the full load. The data collected over a long period of time shows that the typical operating region of the servers at data center is from about 10% to 50% of the load. So this is with respect to the energy consumption. So energy saving in large storage systems is also of a concern. So as we know, okay, small organization, okay, utilizes less energy, large organization utilizes more energy. So we need to focus more on the large storage systems. A strategy to reduce energy consumption is to concentrate the workload on a small number of disks. So we have the four disks in the previous diagram. We need to reduce the energy consumption is to concentrate on the workload on a small number of disks and allow the others to operate in a low power mode. So when we operate in a low power mode, then we can low power mode, then we can save the percentage of power usage as well as the energy efficiency. So this is all about how actually the power and energy efficiency that works. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this video, okay, you can just like it, comment it, and subscribe the channel. Thank you once again.